Hustle on Asian Network.
Hello and welcome to the Everyday Hustle. This is the show where I help motivate and inspire you to pursue what you want to do with your life. I'm Sonya Barlow, and every week I bring you tips, advice and success stories from those who know their stuff. This week I'm speaking to the founders of Gully, a street food company who take their mobile truck around the country, and you may have come across them when you've been out and about or on social media. They are owned and founded by Sudhir and Avi, who are a father and son combo. We are speaking about all things side hustles and securing that paycheck, how to start a street food business, especially during the pandemic, where to invest your money, especially when you don't have that chef certificate, and how to run a successful family business without getting into arguments. So let's get started.
This is the Everyday Hustle on BBC Asian Network.
Sudhir and Avi, welcome to the Everyday Hustle. How are you doing?
Very good. Nice sunny weekend. We've just come off. So I think we're ready for this.
Yes, definitely.
You're ready for it? What are you ready for? To share your business story or to make everyone hustlers?
Both, and everyone hungry, ideally.
And I mean, that brings us on to your business. So you're the founders of Gully, which is a street food company. Is that the correct terminology?
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah, we're specifically focused on street food only. We're not kind of your traditional caterers. That's how we started off, and that's where we want to stay.
And talk to me about how you started off. I mean, did you just one day wake up and you're like, father, son, we're going to, bond together by building a business?
It started in basically December 2019. So my dad, Sudhir, had recently retired, and he was turning kind of the big 6-0. And I think for a lot of people at that age, once they retire, they kind of lost. They're like, what shall I do next? Like, I've worked for 30 years in IT, and I could tell he was a little bit down. He was at a stage where he was confused of what to do with his weeks. He felt, slightly unfulfilled. And we were at a family dinner, and I could just tell that next week he was not in a place where he wanted to be. So I said, Dad, you know what? I used to work in Chancery Lane in the city, and there's a really nice food market there called Leather Lane, which has loads of different street food with loads of different stalls. So I said, Dad, why don't you come down for lunch with me? I just want to show you this one street, which has got all these different kind of street food traders on it. So the next day he came down, it was a Monday, and he came down and he saw it, and he's like, I could just tell the passion, because he's always had a passion for food. Yeah. He's always been the one at home for all our family, for all our parties. He's always, what's your dad cooking? What's your dad cooking?
Oh, nice. Okay, great. So you've been the chef of the household.
Yes.
Amazing.
Yeah, always. So he came down that day, and he saw all these kind of street food vendors there, and he was like, I want to do this. So we got home that night and we started planning. We're like, okay, let's just start something really simple. So we got the most simple black and white gazebo. We literally said, let's just serve the most simple dish. So literally a chicken tikka wrap and a paneer wrap, not the most complex thing. And with a bit of, getting everything together, we managed to launch a little gazebo pop-up in Farringdon at a market called Cowcross Yards Market in December 2019. And it was such a funny day because at that time I had a corporate job, my sister had a corporate job, my wife had a corporate job. So we were all there. So my dad was cooking the food, my sister was on the till, my wife was assembling the wraps, and I was kind of pretending to do something, but I probably wasn't doing anything. And we were just serving these wraps at lunchtime from 12 to 1, and then we'd all run back to our jobs. So you
didn't even take a day off to be there?
No.
You fully used your full-time salary to fund your side hustle, which is really what we, to some extent, advocate on the Everyday Hustle. And I like the fact that you didn't just quit your job overnight to kind of start your family business. So before we go into, the benefits of building and also what you've achieved, I just want to take it back and say, I love the story that you just started from nothing and it was quite a simple idea. But how did you, an example, where did you get the savings from? How did you know how to pitch to a market stall and actually buy a gazebo? These are there's so many details in between.
Yeah. No, there were so many restrictions placed. We had to call the council, find what kind of gazebos we could be allowed. We went out and bought, an example of a mistake we made was we went out and bought a gazebo that was 2 by 3. Mm-hmm. That's because what the council recommended. When we actually turned up, they said, oh, no, you can have the bigger gazebos. So there's a lot of research involved in this. So I just spent a lot of time looking at what we could do, the kind of materials we have to buy.
and went into it. And so normally you have to pay to be at a market store. Did you have to pay there too?
Yeah, you have to pay.
How much was it roughly?
So typically markets take about 20 to 25% of your revenue. So not your profit, your actual revenue, which makes it's a very tight margin business, the street food industry. I wouldn't recommend it to anyone who thinks they're going to become a millionaire overnight. Revenues might be good, but profits are very thin in street food.
The Everyday Hustle with Sonya Barlow.
And so, with all due respect, I'm just going to push it out there. What makes your paneer and chicken tikka roll different to the many other South Asians that are also venturing out in markets and making something work? Because from a competitor baseline, which is what we really do talk about on this show, you have a ton of competitors and you have no brand vision.
Yeah. So what happened there was, like I said, we started in December very basically, and then we continued. So Jan, Feb, March 2020, we were like, let's do this. We did it once a week and we absolutely loved the street food buzz, but we weren't making much money. Like, if I'm being honest, we were probably making £500 a day and our costs were definitely more than that. But it wasn't about the money for us. It was about learning how to do this and the passion that my dad had of now being in a job that he loved.
Mm-hmm.
And then what happened, and this I think answers your question more specifically, is COVID happened and we went into lockdown fully and we all kind of moved back home. And I was speaking to my dad, I go, look, we've got two options. We either just stop because it's COVID and we never know when we're coming out, or we double down in this time where we all got nothing to do. Let's actually now build a brand. Because before we were called Gully Wraps and we're like, okay, that was cool. It was like a small little gazebo thing, but it didn't have that brand that we were looking to build. So then in COVID, we said, okay, now we've got some time, what should we do? So we went on eBay and we found a food truck someone was looking to sell because they were in lockdown. And it was very, it almost messed up, it'd been used for a few years. And we took it, we bought it, and then we said, okay, now let's build the most state-of-the-art truck out there in the UK. That was our aim. So we got a designer from India to go and start designing all the print work. So we've got this London to Delhi skyline on it. We then found this designer in Cardiff who's an expert in building trucks.
And when we say found, what kind of apps or websites were you using, or was it just word of mouth?
It was all Google. Honestly,
you're just literally going on Google.
Literally,
Google's changed lives, you know.
It has.
I think the designer we found on Fiverr.
Yes.
But everything else was through Google, right?
And also, there was a lot of calling to be done. You talk to them, you see how you get on with them. So there's that special relationship you form with them, and then right, this is the right person with them. With you, you got to ask them a lot of questions, and you have to go for what you actually want. Don't let them push you away from what they think is much better.
Yeah.
But how do you know what you want when you've never done this before? And it's a really important question because, and I only say this because a lot of the questions that our hustlers send through, and thank you for everyone who's sending the questions through, is we have an idea. It's not that we don't know how to execute it, is that you have the shiny thing imposter syndrome where you're like, that's glitter and that's gold and I'm going to touch that diamond and this is like...
Yeah.
Really shiny, I'm going to go grab it. So you kind of stray away from what it is that you want.
Yeah. No, I think you're right on that. But I also think it's an opportunity. Like, we're not from a food catering background. I'm a management consultant by trade. My father was in IT. But I think that was our advantage, that we came into an industry with no catering experience, no food experience, and we had a fresh set of eyes. And that's why we've maybe grown as quick as we have, because we haven't been doing it for 10 years and haven't been accustomed to the norms that everyone kind of grows with. So back to what you just said, I think it's actually an opportunity sometimes to be fresh in a new industry, and not having grown up in it. So yeah.
No, it's a great answer. And before we go back to your story, you've both made it really clear that you used to be a management consultant, you used to work in IT. Let's think about transferring of skills. What skills are you therefore using now in your family business? Because a lot of the time, especially the younger generation, they fear failure. So they're afraid of actually giving something a go because they think they don't have the skills in the background. I use my own siblings, for example. They're like, oh, there's a job description that says we need to use analytics, but we've never used data. And I'm like, but you have. You post on Instagram, you go on TikTok, you read the data, you know the insights, you know who you're posting for. Actually, you do it innately.
Yeah,
It's just when you're transferring, it's quite difficult.
Yeah, I agree. Do you want to take that? So what IT skills did you think you brought to Gully?
Well, I think it's the organization of skills I brought across, that we structuring the food and how it's made, getting it out on time. The other thing that we did, I was into IT sales, so it really helped me come across people, especially in the food market. It's just a bit about the sales side of it, the banter. People react with you on a one-to-one basis when they're buying your food, because this is such a special moment for them when they see your food. And that's the skill set kind of I felt I brought across, just my natural personality at that place, and it was just perfect. I love still being on the truck every so often when I'm allowed to. It's just a different buzz than when you're sitting there giving people food, talking to them about things.
I think this is exactly the same skill set from selling. You were selling 50 laptops a day. Now you're selling 50 chicken tikka wraps a day, right? Just a different
Just
product.
a slightly different price point.
Different product, different price point, but same skill set, I think.
Yeah.
And which one's harder to sell?
I would say the laptops now.
Now, but generally.
This is the Everyday Hustle on BBC Asian Network.
Let's go back. So 2020, you've bought this truck.
Yeah.
You've put your investment and savings into it.
Yeah.
You've made this into somewhat of a family business. You've hyped up the truck, made it look great, but you're not actually allowed to go anywhere during lockdown.
Exactly. So what happened there was we then filmed a really cool ad. So we again found some guy of, I think it was Instagram, who said he did some kind of filming, and we were in August, and we said, okay, let's bring some of our family and our friends together, because I think by then you were allowed small gatherings. And we literally had a little car park. We brought our truck there. We filmed this video of people pretending to eat, etc. But it was
Were they pretending they were actually eating though?
well, we told that
We actually did the food.
They were just your friends and family.
Yeah,
which
exactly.
is a really good hustle hack, right?
Yeah.
Is in the beginning, people are like, who are our customers? How do we bring individuals in? And it's like, well, actually, the first individuals are your friends or family.
Exactly. You've got to start there.
Yeah.
It's how, especially most listeners here, BBC Asian Network, is everyone's got massive Asian families, right? There's one thing generally Asians have is big numbers. It was quite easy to source 20, 25 people.
And did you ask them to pay full price?
No, we didn't even charge. We just said it's a free event. We're just doing our filming and our marketing to build a brand. Do you mind coming and have some free food on a nice day in August?
Amazing. So you've got your friends and family.
Yeah.
You're shooting this ad. You've got the truck. At this point, have you quit your jobs?
Me, no.
I was retired, so I had my time. Just spending it on Gully, that's all I was doing. We were finding innovative ideas to see where we could go during the lockdown. So
That comes next year.
We're still in 2020.
Yeah, that's 2021.
So 2020, you've got your advert.
trust me.
So 2020, you've got your advert. You've got your friends and family. You're building up your personal database and your brand.
Yeah.
Do you make any money during 2020?
So in August, after that advert was filmed, we put it on Facebook overnight, and within 24 hours, it got 20,000 views, and it started going viral on WhatsApp groups and everything. And we started getting all these messages going, "Oh, we've just seen you got a truck. Can you come here? Can you come here?" And we were like, "Whoa, we've literally got Dad, want me one employee, my wife, my sister, me. Like we're not ready for this kind of amount of demand that just came in instantly." So suddenly we're like, "Wow, we've actually got a business here." So then what happened was in September, we said we were getting all this hype. We got invited to kind of apply for the British Street Food Awards. So we went into those Street Food Awards. We ended up being one of the top 5 in the country for the food this time, which was
Amazing.
nice, which complemented the brand. And it was still going well, but we were still kind of in and out of COVID, so we couldn't go everywhere at that time. And then the big thing that happened to us was in October, we got an email from Selfridges London saying, "We're launching our first ever Christmas market and we want you to be there." And we're like, whoa, we've never even served that many customers before. We were only 3 months into our truck and we're now at Selfridges, Oxford
You've
Street.
gone from gazebo to Selfridges in 12 months.
Exactly.
With a business in which none of you are actually trained chefs.
Yeah,
And you've taken a whim on your idea.
exactly. It was unplanned escalation, honestly. We started this whole business as just, let's have a family hobby, and it's just turned into, keep snowballing to something where we're like, where's this going?
And now we're in 2023, so fast forward, what have you all achieved?
Well, we're now at 30 staff in the team. We're just at Glastonbury Formula One. We're at Henley Regatta. We're at basically every big festival you can think of. We're now there in the country. We do a lot of corporate lunches. We've got a blue truck, a pink truck, a festival set up. So we're kind of running 3 events a day now across summer. So it just keeps snowballing. We don't know where it's going to go, but we're enjoying the ride.
This is the Everyday Hustle on BBC Asian Network.
And am I right in thinking that everyone now has quit their jobs and is doing this full time?
No, not exactly. So obviously we've got a lot of full-time staff in now. Me personally, I actually do this on the side still. So I still have a corporate job, and that's actually a point I want to make. And I think you just made it earlier, Sonia, same thing, that there's all this advice on social media. You open your Instagram app, it's like, oh, quit your 9 to 5, start your own business. And everyone who's an entrepreneur on Instagram is trying to tell everyone to be an entrepreneur. And I actually disagree with that. I actually fundamentally disagree with that. I think we're in a world now where a lot of people, especially Asians, have worked very hard at school and very hard at university. They've got some of the top jobs in the city. There are top bankers, lawyers, consultants, accountants. Why would you just throw it all away because someone on Instagram calls it the rat race, which I think is a very poor term. So I think if people really want to become an entrepreneur, if you have that burning desire, you start the side hustle. You keep your 9 to 5 or 9 to 6, whatever it is, and you start doing this in your evenings and weekends, and you just keep building it up. And then if you still have that passion after a year or two, you make the jump, and now you've de-risked that whole process. But just quitting with kind of no plan, especially if you've got financial obligations or mortgages or families or babies, I think it's quite an irresponsible move.
In my case, I was free, so I would say just follow your passion. And if you follow your passion, yes, you've got to have a backup all the time, but do what you really enjoy. I'll give you my example. I was in IT for 30 years. The last 10 years was quite hard for me mentally. I think most Asian men, especially at my age, are fed up of doing the same thing over and over and over again, but that's the only thing we know. And I was blessed that I've got such a great family who backed me up into my passion. I found another family, like with my staff. We call it the Gully family. And they're just amazing. I can't wait to be with them every day. The way I look at it, I've got kind of like 2 families with us. So if anyone's thinking of setting up a business, yes, Avi's right in what he's saying. Also, you've got to make sure your passion is in there. You can't just do it because I want to make more money. Money's not the main objective. Main thing is passion, and then you're going to go for it. You will make mistakes, but they're learning curves. Everything, we've made so many mistakes, but we've learned so much from it.
This is the Everyday Hustle on BBC Asian Network.
Sudhir and Avi, earlier in the show, I think there was an idea which you touched on, which we didn't quite unpack, and it really was around that loneliness and their identity kind of crisis, and when you're pivoting yourself from one to another. And it's interesting that as 2 males who identify as South Asian, you're here on the show, because a lot of the men that we've had on the show, and they've been extremely great, we've spoken about mental health, we've spoken about the insecurities that come with running a business or being a man, or just always having to feel like you have to always be on to make something work. And to me, it sounds like, yes, you started a business as a family, but you also started it because retirement just wasn't the obvious next step for you, given that you've been working for 30 years. And Abby, for yourself, it was just a matter of helping your dad. Do you think that's why a lot of family businesses start in the South Asian community?
Not really. I actually think the opposite. I think most of the time in the South Asian community, it's the dad's already established the business for 20, 30 years, and then the son's looking for the next step and he joins the father. Whereas I think this is a unique one where we both launched it together at the same time from scratch. So we're both learning in our own ways. Dad kind of runs the food in the kitchen. I run the business and the marketing and the sales, that side. So we have different skill sets, but we're kind of equal in this, which you might say for some businesses, or traditionally, it's kind of the dad teaching the son until a stage where the son then surpasses the dad. But we're both growing at the same speed in different directions.
Yeah, and Sudhir, why did you start a business and not just go travelling or enjoy your life or go sit on a beach with a coconut, which is all what we really dream of when we think about retirement?
No, there was the passion inside of me. I really wanted to cook, and I felt it was unfulfilled. It was totally unfulfilled. So I had to do something to do with food.
What made you start via a truck and not just go straight into a restaurant?
We don't want to go to a restaurant ever. It's not in our plan. There's so many good Indian restaurants around the country, and there's Indian restaurants everywhere. We found our own niche, which is street food kind of truck catering, which is a very different skill set. For there, it's all about volume and it's about the experience. It's like, how many people can you serve in an hour? Think about Glastonbury this weekend. It's queues and queues and queues, and it's all about the speed of service with the quality of food, with the experience. A lot of people in the restaurant industry can't do that, and we probably can't do what people in the restaurant industry do. And again, there's probably another more general business tip. It's don't try and be the jack of all trades in a particular industry. Like, find your niche, find your speciality, and be the best at it. And I think that's where we're at now with Gully. We probably are the leading Indian street food brand, but that's it. We're nowhere near compared to anyone in the restaurant game, and that's fine with us.
And I mean, you keep bringing it to our attention that you're a family-owned business, which I absolutely love. But how do you work together as a family when it comes to business?
You take it first, in case I say anything wrong.
Yeah, it's quite tough at times. We have our defined roles. I think we will cross them. We will cross them a few times. I think we've done it this weekend in a way.
Yeah.
But these are the things that you just have to be aware of. And you've got to it's for the good of the business at the end of the day. So you will have a few arguments along the route, but you are all working towards the same goal.
Yeah, I agree. I think working with a family is like a catalyst, two ways. One way is you grow really quickly because you get to the crux of the issue really quickly because you don't need to flirt around the idea. You go, this is the problem, let's have it out and sort it. But equally, it can be a catalyst for self-implosion, where it's like boundaries get crossed, and then there's kind of dynamics where you can't even switch off in your weekends or your evenings because you're with your family. So I think it can go one of two ways, and we've seen many examples of that.
The Everyday Hustle with Sonya Barlow.
And do you have family members that don't want to do it anymore?
Of course. I think in the most stressful times, and I think that's every single entrepreneur, there are days where like, why am I doing this? I should just go back to a nice, cushy 9-to-5 job, etc. And it goes through everyone's heads. I doubt there's only one person that's just made the jump and then said never look back. There's always those days. But if you're looking to build something, you've got to take the risk.
And how do you organise holidays? How do you say, I've got this weekend off, you're working this weekend?
Well, now I think we're at a stage where we're not in the trucks ourselves. I mean, personally, I've never been in the truck. I can't cook for anything. I have a street food business that I can't cook. But it's about the team. We just have a really strong team. And again, there's another thing, I think, for every successful, fast-growing business, you need to have a really strong management team. And we're blessed with our senior managers who've come in and treated the brand like their own. So, without them, we wouldn't be anywhere near where we are.
And so let's talk about your team. I've got two questions. One is, how did you fund your first hire? And the second is, who was your first hire and why?
So I'd say we have two kind of main hires who are our senior managers. So it's Nish, who was one of the top kind of managers at one of the leading Indian restaurants in Northwest London. And he was looking for his next role to move on, and this just felt like a very nice fit. And the second kind of senior manager is called India, who's come in and really led the operations of the business and the finance of the business, which we didn't have the skill sets for. How did we fund them? It started off as you do on a 0-hour contract. You've got to in street food. You can't say I'm going to commit 30, 40, 50 grand a year up front when you don't have any revenue yourself and you don't know where it's going. It's like, in a market, you make a certain amount. This is how much you can afford to pay on an hourly basis. Let's start with 0 hours, and if the business keeps growing, we'll turn this to a more fixed contract.
And what does that mean exactly? So when we say 0-hour contracts, does it literally mean you are working here, but we don't know how many hours we're going to give you per month, and then it's an hourly rate?
Yeah, exactly. So it's an hourly rate. So whether it will be 10, 15, 20 pounds an hour. And you say, this month, we don't know how many events we have. We might only have 8 events, so we can only give you 8 days of work. So that times by the number of hours you work is how much you get paid. What we do, though, is try and now have a minimum. So they know each month they're not going to have any less than this number of hours. And
so therefore, am I right in thinking they also have other jobs?
Some, at the beginning, yes.
At the beginning, they did.
Yeah,
I'm a big believer of, in the first 3 to 5 years, hiring part-time staff members who have other jobs so that they can bring those expertise and skills that they're learning from somewhere else into the organisation. Not everyone thinks that way.
Yeah.
Have you found benefits, or have you found problems when that, have any problems occurred actually?
Yeah, loads. Especially when their other employer can't tell them that these are the days you can have off next week or next month. And then suddenly you have scheduling clashes because we need them Saturday, Sunday, and their other employee needs them Saturday, Sunday, and it's the battle for who's going to win it for that month. So especially with in the catering and hospitality industry, it's very common to be on 0-hour contracts. So I think that's very normal for them. But it means that, you're kind of always fighting over who gets who when.
And one thing that I want to touch on is the idea of sustainability. So I'm hearing more and more that the younger generation and the new professionals in the workspace, they want to work for a sustainable business. And actually they're happy to 70% of them are happy to take a pay cut or work on 0 contract hours if they are aligned to a sustainable business and one that is more eco-friendly. Would you consider your business as one which is sustainable?
Yes, definitely. I think when we first set up, and that was one of our criteria, wasn't it? That all our packaging was going to be non-plastic, all these minor things. Well, not minor, major now. But all our packaging, all our food wastage policies, we've devised a formula on how much food to bring along so we minimize food wastage. I'll give you an example we did with the corporate company last week, where they'd only ordered 90 portions, but we normally in the past, what people will bring is 120, 130 portions. But we've got this formula that calculates how much they should eat and what the weight of each portion is. And we were dead on exactly the same amount. We ran out of everything at 90 portions. So it's beautiful to see these kind of things with the way the world is at the moment. That you're not wasting food, you're using as little energy as possible when you're cooking. So yeah, we love it.
And that ties back actually, Sonia, to the point you made before about what transferable skills could you use. So I built an Excel modeling tool to say this is the number of people we have. How many kilograms of chicken do we need as a result? And it's some kind of model that will flow through. How many naan wraps do we need? And it flows through with a few input cells and a few output cells, which is a classic consulting 101 thing you do, but that's something we've kind of brought to Gully.
So if anyone's here taking maths, accounting or finance and they're like, how can I use this in my real life? This is how Excel comes into play. And that's really important. And it goes back to one of the points you made earlier about social media. And I love to talk about social media and the everyday hustle is social media will make you believe something that doesn't exist. It'll make you believe that you don't have the skill sets or that you have the skill sets and you can just become a millionaire overnight.
Yeah.
It will make you believe that people aren't doing the work and the hard work in the background. One of my pet peeves is those day in the life videos where everything is beautiful. And I'm like, how do you look so good? And how do you have time for an espresso coffee? And how do you just, have time to do the work? Like the rest of us are emailing and adminning and not sleeping and figuring out where our next paycheck comes from.
Yeah.
And I think a big part of that is, again, going back to our point of this, you keep talking about the skills you're using. And when you go on TikTok or Instagram, it'll never teach you the skills you need to be an entrepreneur. It'll teach you the life that you can live and you can glamorize. But what I'm hearing you say is money was not your motivator.
No.
You're trying to be a sustainable led business. You're taking things on a whim. You haven't quit your full-time job to even get to a position where you are taking this as your only hustle. And that itself is, quite brave of you to share because people might think you're absolutely smashing it otherwise.
Yeah.
If money wasn't your main motivator, what was?
For this, it was writing the story together, father and son. I think that's where we're at. We're at a place now. I have a burning desire to be an entrepreneur. He has a burning desire for food. Let's try and make this work. And like I keep saying, it's unplanned escalation. Like we didn't expect to be where we are now, and we don't know where we're going to be in a few years' time, but yeah, it's been a really, really enjoyable ride.
This is the Everyday Hustle on BBC Asian Network.
And one thing I love to ask our hustlers are their words of wisdom. So do you both have any words, mantras, quotes that you live by and that kind of carry your passions through whilst you're chefing it up for others?
I'll let you answer the first one, then
I had a boss at a previous, when I was at a tech scale-up, and he'd been a CEO and a COO at many different tech scale-ups and done quite well. And he said this one thing to me that was stuck with me was, he thought of his career journey. He goes, think of your career journey as a passport book. And the aim is to collect as many different stamps as you can. Because one day you're going to look back and go, what did I achieve and where was I? And he wanted to be part of every minor success story around. And for me, that stuck with me. If I just stayed in one job for my whole life. Not saying it's a bad thing, but for me, my passport would have looked a bit bland. So this was an opportunity to have that stability of a stable job, but also build that second stamp with my own business. So I think that for me is keep trying, keep innovating, and something will stick.
I'm going to go back in history a little bit. I'm going to go to my mum in a way. I remember when we first came to this country, we used to live in Wembley, and she used to be so meticulous about buying her foods. And there's only the one greengrocer, and being vegetarian as she was so meticulous with any food she picked, and she'd check it out. She at that time, as a kid, I'd pull the trolleys along and help her out. I learned from that afterwards. I didn't come across that. Whatever you do in life, you've got to be very meticulous about what you're choosing and what you're going to do. And because with those products she was making something different, making food for the family, she gave it her all every time. So the one thing I would say is make sure you give whatever you're going to do, give it your all. Don't worry about the failure.
And really, really great words of wisdom. Thank you for sharing. Now, if we just touch on failure quite quickly, and I say quickly and briefly because this is the beginning of your journey, and there's going to be so many failures which are going to come up, which are going to seem mega stressful in that moment, but afterwards you're kind of going to live and laugh and learn. So what was one of those epic failures that you think you all went through that now you look back and you're like laughing about it, but then that moment completely tore you down?
Can I do?
Yep.
Yeah, we were going to attend a party. We took our truck.
It's the engagement party, yeah.
The engagement party.
Yeah.
And the clutch broke down halfway, and it on the motorway. So we thought to ourselves, right, now we can either just drive back or get a coach, cancel the party.
Bearing in mind, this is the engagement started at 6, and this is about 4:30 p.m. on the way there. So yeah, carry on.
We thought we can't let the customer down. We got one of these big carry-on trucks kind of thing. They came over. They said, "Oh, we'll take you up." We said, "No, you're taking us to the party." So we pushed we got the truck to the party. My staff were amazing. They had to push the truck uphill, and you can imagine how heavy it was because there were low-hanging trees. We couldn't get the truck through. We fed the people at the party, and the next 2-3 days was so much hard work getting the truck back. The expense was amazing. We lost a lot of money, but we look back at that and we said, that's a medal that's a medal for us, that we can't let anyone down. No matter what happens, you've got to carry on.
Yeah, the show must go on was
Yeah.
the mistake there. I think another epic mistake we made was at the beginning we were taking any festival we could get. So especially in the first year, we're like, oh, we got this festival, and one of them was this EDM festival in London. And we thought, oh, great, 10,000 people coming. There's only a few food traders. We're going to do well there. So we sent a massive team. We had like 10, 11 people from our team there. We had loads of chicken tikka, loads of paneer, loads of jolly, everything you could think of. And after about 5 hours, we'd sold one wrap and 500 bottles of water.
500 bottles of water,
and
which
one
is probably where the margin is anyway.
Yeah, kind of. And then we were like, okay, we've realised there's some festivals where appetites are suppressed and people are not there to eat. Now we know which ones to avoid. But yeah, that day was a challenge.
Yeah.
This is the Everyday Hustle on BBC Asian Network.
And as we start to think about what's next for you, I guess I want to take it back slightly and say, I love the fact that this is a father-son venture, but what about the rest of your family? Why are they not included? If it's a family venture, right? What about your other siblings or kind of your wife who's a part of it?
He sacked them all.
Yeah, had to get rid of my sister. No, my wife runs our social media, so she's very much involved. So all our Instagram, she kind of grew us organically from 0 to whatever we're at now, 11,000 followers or something. And then my sister's, in her own corporate job, and my mum, although she's not technically part of the business, she lives in the house where the business is in and out every day, so she is an honorary member.
An honorary member.
Yeah.
I love that. And so what does the future look like? What is it that you envision with your street food truck? And what I've heard you say, it's never going to be a restaurant, so I'm going to hold you to that. I'm a big believer of recently never saying never, so I look forward to in 10 years where you're like, you know what?
Yeah.
It was too good to turn down, so now we're a restaurant somewhere. But what do you hope from not just your business, but a better question is, what do you hope from the industry?
Yeah.
Especially when you're thinking about the cost of living crisis, when you're thinking about individuals eating out less, when you're thinking about less expenditure,
Yeah.
when you're thinking about more increased competition, right? Because actually everyone can buy a food truck and start their own business.
Yeah.
And also when you're thinking about your own time and labor, because you have a full-time job still that you are managing.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean that you are 100% hourly committed to your current hustle. It's not saying you're not committed 100%, but the hours don't match up. So what is kind of the next few years look like?
I think for us, the next few years are about three things. First thing is, which we already are in, but really breaking into the Asian wedding scene. I think we've got to a stage now where a lot of people are looking for more outdoor weddings than before. I think since COVID, there's been this whole hype of actually we want food trucks and we want a gazebo at our wedding. We don't want to be in a sit-down hall, kind of traditional catering from the same kind of guys. So we've had a lot of requests for that, and I can see that growing as people look for different options for their wedding nights or their mehndi nights or whatever you're thinking. Secondly, we're starting to get more involved in kind of corporate lunches and takeovers. So we've done, I don't know if I can name them, but like, Facebook, Netflix, Disney, etc., all their types of lunches at their own canteens. So we'll come to their offices and we'll kind of cater there at their using their own kitchen facilities. And then thirdly, it's to continue with the festivals and keep growing them. But festivals are a big risk. That's one tip. Sometimes you can make money and sometimes you can make a big loss if it rains and you're in the wrong location, etc. So festivals seem very glamorous, but they're high risk, high reward.
I think we're also looking at the pop-ups in a way, not restaurant, but a small street food bar within a big complex and things like that.
Yeah.
Which is open part-time.
Yeah.
Avi, this is probably a question for you more than your father, but you've mentioned that you work a full-time job.
Yeah.
And so there's many of us that are starting hustles whilst working a full-time job. How do you balance your responsibility to your employer, who pays your bills, and to your business? And do you tell them that you have this hustle on the side?
Yeah, I had to declare it when I joined them at the beginning to say I have this. I think you've got to be responsible. If I start doing gully work lunchtime in my corporate job, it's not good and it's not right. So I time box my hours. So from 9 to 7, I'm kind of on my job and I will not check my gully mail. And then in the evenings from 8 to 10, or maybe sometimes it's 9 to 11, I'll start doing those emails. And then the weekends, I'm quite full on my emails then. So I really try and segment the day, because if you let everything mix up in the same place, you're kind of screwed on both ends. So yeah, time boxing is the method I use.
And my final question for both of you is, don't you ever get FOMO? Don't you get the fear of missing out, as in what other street food vendors are doing and what other companies are doing and how one might be thriving and where you are currently? Do you ever get that fear of missing out with your competitors, let's say?
I wouldn't say fear of missing out. I'd say I want to know what they're doing well, and then we want to copy that. So I think we ourselves are doing really well, and I think a lot of people are now copying us quite a bit. But the ones that are doing better than us, we'll ask them questions. This is an industry where people are willing to help each other. And it's an amazing industry that way. I always go to a couple of other vendors and said, okay, is this the right pitch? Are we in the right, am I doing this the right way? There's so much help out there for us. So I wouldn't say FOMO, I'd say learn.
Yeah, it's a very tight-knit community, the street food traders. They're all generally there to help each other. And generally we're not competing. There's some good, there's one partner we work with called Curb. I don't know if you've heard of them, Curb Street Food. So we're one of their partners with them, and we do a lot of work together. They're very helpful at trying to grow a street food business. So if anyone looking to start, they're a good place to start with.
The Everyday Hustle with Sonya Barlow.
Sudhir and Avi, thank you so much for coming on the Everyday Hustle today. I know that we've learned so much.
Yeah, just thank you to, firstly, all our teams. Thank you to all of them. And then secondly, to all our customers who've been following us around our journey for the last 3 years, from all our markets across kind of London to then booking us for your weddings and your events, and then finally to attending all of our festivals as well. So yeah, thank you for that.
Yes.
On this episode, we've learned so much. Not only is it possible to have a flourishing business, father and son, and bringing those family dinner conversations into your own food truck, but it is about how you transfer your skills, not losing yourself in your 9 to 5, but also not quitting it full time because you want to start your hustle. Thinking about your customers, your market, and niching down, having that clear focus, and not going to every festival and saying yes, but giving yourself enough time to try, fail, and learn from your mistakes, and asking for help. We have so many amazing episodes also available on the BBC Sounds app. Just search for The Everyday Hustle, and you can listen back to nearly 100 episodes now from our hustlers, their top tips, their tricks, and career advice to make sure that you are thriving. And I will see you very soon.
This is the Everyday Hustle on BBC Asian Network.